Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Jaclyn Tolentino. I'm the lead doctor here at Parsley Health in West Hollywood. And Parsley Health, we're the premier model of healthcare. We integrate nutrition, lifestyle modifications, mental health, and cutting-edge diagnostic testing into conventional primary care. And our mission is to redefine medical care with root cause, whole person approach, with the best understanding of data, technology, and also doctor-patient and health coach relationships. So many patients, they often include that goal of pregnancy as one of their main goals. How do you lay down the best foundation for yourself when you're trying to conceive? So what we're going to discuss tonight is the process of preparing to conceive naturally, what obstacles you might encounter on the road to that goal, and also steps that you can take to overcome any barriers or challenges to trying to conceive naturally. Fertility is a really sensitive issue. It's also an emotional issue. And so we're committed to creating really great dialogue tonight to discuss the questions and concerns that most of you have about how do I conceive. So next we're going to introduce the panelists. I'm really excited about who we've brought here tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, and thank you for your time for coming here this evening. If you could just all speak and say what your name is, what your background is, and of course how you love to contribute to the conversation about fertility, and maybe if you have any personal experiences about that. We'll start with you.
Okay. My name is Andrea Reiter. I'm with Fusion Fertility, and I use a mind-body approach to getting pregnant, so looking at the mindset component. And I've had women up to age 47 get pregnant naturally just by shifting their mindset and energy. It's been really cool to watch. I started this because my sister-in-law was having trouble getting pregnant, and now I have a nephew who's 5 years old, and it's the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done. And so my goal today in the discussion is to talk about why mindset is important, and some things that you can implement today that can help you shift that.
Great.
Hi, I'm Erica. I am a health coach out of LA in this office. I've been with Parsley Health for about 1.5 years. I have my master's in nutrition and integrative health, which means that I'm focusing on both the nutrition and just the foundational lifestyle to heal people, to allow people to be their healthiest and most vibrant, empowered self. Within the topic of fertility, as Jaclyn mentioned, it's one that many of our members are curious about and want to explore, and it's one of the most fulfilling goals as a practitioner to see them follow through on. You know, we've taken women who are told that they can't get pregnant naturally, and we've been able to shift their eating habits and do some targeted supplementation and make sure that they're sleeping and hydrating well, and within a few months they're pregnant naturally and getting those emails. The next time you see them, that hug is probably like the deepest, most amazing hug. And so this is something that I'm wildly passionate about, because I think that there's a lot of confusion in the world of fertility and family planning, and it's a pleasure to get to change some of those misconceptions.
Hi, my name is Sage. I'm the creator and co-founder of Addictive Wellness. We are a company making sugar-free raw chocolates and incorporating Chinese and Ayurvedic herbs and a number of other things in that field. And my expertise that I bring and background that I bring to this is traditional herbal systems of indigenous cultures. And I think, some people may not initially pay a lot of attention to what we're talking about because they're not immediately wanting to conceive. But really, I think when it comes down to it, a fertile woman is a healthy woman. And so, some things that we talk about certainly tonight will specifically be applicable to women wanting to conceive imminently, whereas most of it is really to women who just want to be vibrantly healthy and feel amazing and have their hormones in a good place and have great, mental health and be glowing. Like there's so much more that happens as a downstream effect. If you get fertile, you also get really healthy and feel great. So I think this is something that can really help us.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So before I get started on the questions, I have put together a good set of questions that I felt like are really important that everybody should hear about, and I'm really looking forward for you guys providing some of the best answers. And then for those of you that are on Instagram Live right now, if you guys have any questions that you want to hear the answers to from our panelists, make sure that you just go ahead and message in, and towards the end we'll be taking some of the live questions from everyone. So, get started. The first one, I want to briefly discuss if lifestyle factors can really impact fertility, and generally if there's a certain part of lifestyle that you feel is the best to help prepare a woman for pregnancy. So let me start with Erica.
Okay, yeah. I think when you look at fertility, people tend to want to dive in on some of the really big topics, like, is my folate level good enough, or are my periods regular enough? But I like to take a step back and say, like, are we covering the baselines of health? Are you sleeping well? Do you handle stress well, or does it take over your life? Are you hydrated? Because every single cell, every single process in our body relies on adequate hydration. And so if you are not well hydrated, we need to start there. We need to start with the baselines. I often give my members within Parsley a framework to start with just good blood sugar regulation, and it's fiber, fat, and protein on every plate. You're going to be giving your body a ton of nutrients. You're going to be giving it beautiful, gentle blood sugar rises and falls, and you're going to create the best foundation to do whatever you want, whether it's a fertility goal or whether you have another health goal. But if we don't cover those baselines, then it doesn't even make sense to move into that second echelon of treatment.
So Sage, when they're talking about lifestyle changes and, through traditional Chinese medicine and herbs and things like that, what do you think is a good foundational concept within Chinese medicine for that?
Well, I think you, first and foremost, when we're looking at things that can be problematic, you want to make sure that you're optimizing hormone health, because so many factors in our lifestyles today are detracting from hormone health. And these are really some of the master switches that are going to control things like ovulation and egg development. And so we want to look at, okay, what can mess with our hormones? And there's a variety of things. It helps to really look at it from an evolutionary biology point of view, really, because becoming pregnant and having a baby is a huge investment of resources on the part of the mother, and it's a huge risk in terms of her safety and the baby's safety. So if the environment is not safe, if it's not a low-stress environment with an abundance of resources, then you're going to get in trouble because you just don't have what it takes, right? You're not going to, the body's not going to prioritize fertility hormones if you're in a high-stress environment. Or let's say you're overtraining. That's another thing that can be an obstacle as well. If you're training to the limit every single day, your body is going to deplete its hormone reserves, and your body thinks you're fighting for your life every day on a biological level. It's not going to think, oh, this is a great time to be making babies. I'm fighting for my life every day. And there's dietary aspects to this as well. For example, if you're having a low-fat diet, it's kind of signaling to your body, this is not in a place of abundance where there's plenty of caloric resources available to me. So then again, we're in survival mode, not make a baby and procreate mode. And then also toxicity is another issue you really want to look at going into this, whether it's heavy metals that you're being exposed to, or whether it's like PCBs or phthalates, parabens, things in perfumes and colognes, which ironically are some of the worst things for fertility, and phytoestrogens and xenoestrogens, like plastics coming from water bottles. These are like fake synthetic estrogens that are going to block your hormone receptors and not allow the healthy fertility hormones to actually get in there. So
Thank you.
All these ways of alleviating stress from the body can really open things up.
Great points. So, Andrea, when we're talking about lifestyle and just down to the basics, say I'm like, okay, I want to get pregnant. What are the things that I should be thinking about? Maybe it's a personal mantra. Maybe it's just shifting my mind to be able to think about a certain thing that way. Like, what do you think is a good baseline for women when it comes to the emotional and mental health concept there?
Well, one thing I find a lot is that people, I know work isn't considered a lifestyle thing, but you spend a third of your life working. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times my clients have issues like, they're either teachers or nurses or CEOs responsible for teams of people, and they're giving so much to their job, and so the brain says, well, I already have kids, I can't I can't add another thing to my plate. And so many of the women tell me, well, yeah, when I get pregnant, then I'll look at it. And that could be the very reason why you're not. So I would say that you have to look at, it's not that you have to pretend you're pregnant now when you're not, because your brain's like, no, we're not, and I'm not playing that game. But you do have to look at where you can step back or create space. And I usually have my clients write down like 3 to 5 things where they can create a little bit of space in their day. Even if that is like, if you have a crazy job, that you take a lunch break if you don't, or you take 10 deep breaths before you go into work. Something that is for you, that is creating space and feels downstream within your given circumstances. So it's not that you have to change everything right now, but you do have to go, okay, what is for me? Where can I make a little bit of space here?
Oh, that's great. I want to switch over to herbs and traditional medicine approaches to boosting fertility. Can these be helpful? Are there any specific top herbs, maybe just like the top 3 that you think are the most helpful, that someone can incorporate into their journey to help them conceive?
Absolutely. So some of my favorites here are going to be ashwagandha is one, and this works in a number of ways. It's actually great for both men and women, in fact. So ashwagandha is an Ayurvedic herb coming from India. This is great for decreasing stress and anxiety. At the same time, it's very supportive of the endocrine system, supportive of the thyroid, which is another component of your endocrine system that plays a huge role in successful fertility outcomes, and is, there's an epidemic right now of hypothyroidism in the modern world. And so ashwagandha is supporting in all these ways. Some other ones would be shatavari, which is another Ayurvedic herb, which is also known as she who possesses 100 husbands. Meaning if you can deal with the crap of 100 husbands, surely you can make a couple babies. So that's one of my favorites. Then there's also gelatinized maca, which is a form of maca that's been heat processed, so it's actually more bioavailable and easier to digest and more potent than raw maca. Chasteberry is another great one for promoting fertility hormones, but you have to be careful with it, because chasteberry, if you go off of it cold turkey at any point, it can mess up your flow of hormones through your cycle for a while. So if you ever have to go off of chasteberry, it's something you want to wean off of real gently. And tribulus is another one that, again, both good for men and women, but tribulus specifically for women helps to regulate ovulation. So there's lots of things here that can be really helpful. And then one other category, if you don't mind, is the Jing herbs in the Chinese system. Things like eucommia, cordyceps, cistanche, rhamania, morinda. These are replenishing your core kidney adrenal energy. It's like your reserves of energy that's signaling to your body, I have everything I need. I'm ready to actually give some to the next generation. And there's also formulations that will help in this department of hormone regulation, things like Codonopsis and Longan, and another one is Bupleurum and Peony, which is specifically good for regulating hormones and putting the cycle into a good balanced place for fertility.
Thank you. Erica, from a nutrition perspective, we talk a lot with our members about nutrition and how they conceive naturally. Can you give me the top 3, the top 5 foods, nutrients, things that you think are like the most important to help boost fertility?
Yeah, the absolute top is I want to know that you're getting enough calories. Because as Sage has mentioned a couple of times, we need to promote this idea of abundance in the body. So if you have a fertility goal, this is not the time that you also want to be trying to get a 24-pack ab for bikini season, because those just don't align with one another. So at the very minimum, I want to make sure that you're taking in enough calories to support you and to support all of your processes. So that's the first thing that we're going to talk about. And we're going to have a very open dialogue about that, because I think that in and of itself can be a very scary topic sometimes. And it's uncomfortable, because there are times when I have somebody who really desperately wants to become pregnant, really wants to have children. I'm like, hey, we need to consider gaining 5, maybe 10 pounds. You might be a little underweight. And that can be a tough conversation to have, but that's one that is good to have that wonderful relationship with your care team. Second to that, it's fats. Our fats are healthy fats. So things like avocado, oily fish like salmon, nuts, seeds. These are so beneficial because without abundance of fats in the diet, you will not create those sex hormones. So we absolutely need fats in order to create those hormones. I'm also a big fan of just looking at different micronutrients. In parsley, we do a lot of wonderful testing. So we can look at your nutrient reserves. So I can see that, oh, maybe you're a little bit low on zinc, or maybe you're a little bit low on total protein, and we can adjust from there, both of these being very important for ovulation, or maybe beta carotene, which we need in order to create cell signaling. So there's a lot of really interesting nutrient reserves that we can look at. Ultimately, there's very few that are way leaps and bounds more important over another, but we have to make sure that you're not coming from a place of feeling really depleted from a nutritional standpoint and from a lifestyle standpoint.
Great, thank you. Andrea, when it comes to shifting your mindset and creating the best possible energy in the body, what are some tips or takeaways that women can, just as a starting point, if they're new to that, something that they can start to do to implement every day?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a quote, which I forget who it's by, but there's a quote that says, ego says, when everything falls into place, I will find peace. Spirit says, when I find peace, everything falls into place. And it's so important because when you think, when I get the thing, when I get the baby, then I'll be okay. But what that's saying from a law of attraction perspective, like energy attracts like energy. So if I'm saying I'm only okay when I get the baby, what I'm actually saying is I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And so that's the energy that I'm met with a match to. So the best thing to start with, honestly, is to go, what is going right now? I'm getting a cycle. I have a uterus. I have a supportive husband. I have a place to live. I am taking care of myself. What is going right now? It doesn't mean that you have to just be okay with what is right now and, well, this is my life now and I have to just deal with that. But you have to start from a place of gratitude and of right now, technically speaking, you are okay right now. It's only when we're in the shoulda, coulda, woulda of the past. I should have done this. I should have said this. Or the what if of the future. What if it doesn't happen? What if I am too old? What if I'm not taking the correct 38 supplements? That's what gets us upset in our present. It's not our present that's upsetting. So the best place to start is to come to the present. Why am I okay right now? What did go well today? Start there, because you can't go, when you're driving, you can't go from reverse to drive. I mean, you can, but you will break your transmission. So you have to get to neutral first and then go forward.
And how important is breathwork and meditation in this?
I mean, breathwork is huge because we have a whole emotional system that sits here, and most of us are operating from here up, and so it is very important. Some people, meditation of course is great, but not everybody's a meditation-y person. Mm-hmm. Most of my clients are super type A, and they're like, I can't meditate, I can't do it. So if it's going for a run or taking a bath or whatever, reading the last Harry Potter book that you didn't finish, whatever that is, great, do that. That it is important, but you have to be doing things that are for you. That not everything has to have a baby sticker on it. I'm doing this meditation to get the baby. That's attachment. I'm going to do this meditation because I feel good. It makes me feel chilled out.
I love that.
That's important.
Can I ask? Because often, or somewhat regularly, I have people when I have that conversation, and I ask, what is something that you enjoy to do? Sometimes people are so disconnected. That I don't know. So how do you help with that?
Well, you can kind of put a pause button on your life when you're dealing with this. Like, it's like, now my life is fertility. So I will often ask them, what did you do before this fertility journey started? Well, I used to play tennis. That's literally your homework. Yeah. Go play tennis. Okay. One of my clients hadn't had a glass of champagne in 5 years. Have a glass of champagne. You're not going to die. That's not going to be the make or break in whether or not you get pregnant. So it's really about going back to what they used to do. But then I will make suggestions. Of course, there's like the Den meditation over here. Like, go to a class, try different things, and if you're like, that's not my thing, move to the next thing. But usually they can find something that they used to like to do. It connects them back to who they were before this started. And that's so important. You're a person still. Like, this is just part of your journey right now. It's not who you are right now,
So what is the number one mistake that so many people make when they're trying to conceive, and how can they avoid that mistake? I'd love for all of you to answer that one.
Let's go first.
Sure, I'll go.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, but I think just going back to the work thing, most of my clients again are very type A, and we are used to being able to do A plus B and get C. We're very efficient at work. We get it done. We don't take no for an answer, and fertility is not linear like that.
Agreed.
And you cannot do A plus B and get C, otherwise you would have a baby by now. So again, going back to that energy perspective, if I am hunting for this thing from an energy perspective, if I'm hunting it, it's running away. So I'm hunting it, so it's running away. So I have to come then more to a place of allowing and getting myself cleared out and lit up so that I am a match to the thing that I want. So the biggest thing I see is I had somebody come to me who had just done 9 back-to-back rounds of IVF. Was like, no, not taking no for an answer, beating her head against a wall. I'm like, if it's not working, stop banging your head on the door. Like, pick a different door. It doesn't mean you have to give up on your dream. It just means you can't do it the way you would do everything else, especially work related,
And what about from a nutrition perspective, Erica?
Yeah, I really think that one of the biggest pitfalls is when people get so caught up in the nitty-gritty of, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I have 12 milligrams of zinc every day because that's what the RDA is for somebody who's trying to get pregnant. How am I going to get that? And when you kind of take yourself out of the intuition around eating and really just nourishing yourself, then, like you said, I love the analogy of hunting. Like I have to get to my 12 milligrams and it's running away from you. So the biggest pitfall is becoming too caught up in the minutia and getting away from, I'm going to eat this beautiful piece of omega-3 rich salmon because it looks wonderful and it nourishes me, and I'm having it with grilled asparagus because I love asparagus, not because of the polyphenols and the different nutrients in it. So it's really just connecting back to the fact that we need to nourish ourselves as human beings first.
Yeah.
You need to be coming from that beautiful place of abundance, not getting caught up in the nitty-gritty, and also not taking the fun out of it either, because trying to start a family should also be a very fun time. And I see especially some type A people get very focused on the outcome and they forget about the journey, and it can be a beautifully fun time of exploration with your partner, and taking yourself out of that, you're missing out on so much interaction and fun and enjoyment.
Definitely.
For sure. So from a stress perspective, Sage, maybe you can help me with the herbs that are really helpful to bring down the stress response that a lot of women have around just the topic of being super stressed out, trying to figure out how can I get pregnant. I'm really frustrated and I want to relax. So what are some of the things there?
Absolutely. So some of my favorite herbs for stress are reishi mushroom, which is known as the herb of immortality and spiritual potency. The Taoists traditionally would say that it helps guide you around the obstacles standing in the way of you in enlightenment. One of the greatest herbs for getting you out of your head into your heart. And ashwagandha, and we mentioned earlier, is another great one. Holy basil is another favorite. But I do want to clarify that with all these herbs we mentioned so far, if you are actively trying to conceive, you want to take these from the time you get your period up until ovulation. Because although some of these herbs are traditionally used during pregnancy, modern science has not extensively studied the safety of these herbs in pregnancy or breastfeeding. So they're great to have before and leading up and getting you to that optimal place. But when it comes to the point where you may be pregnant, okay, well now you stop and you do all the other amazing things that you can do for stress in terms of getting really good sleep, making sure that you are connecting well with your partner, doing breath work, doing yoga, exercising gently. And there's a time and place for the herbs, and so kind of ovulation is where you cut off. If you don't get pregnant on that cycle, you get your period, okay, now you start again. And if I may also answer your previous question about things that kind of people miss a little bit, I think there's a lot of lacking education for people about some of the biggest tests that they can use to assess their fertility, where it's at now, and how it's progressing over time, how much maybe they're staying fertile, or how fast their fertility is declining. 3 of the most important tests in this department are inhibiting B, which is one where you are looking at it's a very actually great insight at the quantity and the health of your active follicles. And then FSH is another one that's very commonly used. This is follicle stimulating hormone. It's basically a signal being sent from your brain to your ovaries to be more active. And so it's kind of like your brain is the boss up in the office and your ovaries are the factory. And the more the factory people are kind of not really producing, the more the boss yells down from above. So the higher the FSH is, the more fertility concerns you'd be having. And so you want ideally FSH, you want to have it below 10 is ideal for fertility. And then the other one is AMH, and this is probably one of the best in terms of being insightful, but also the most misunderstood. This is anti-Müllerian hormone. And this is a measure of what's called the functional ovarian reserve. A lot of people misinterpret it and think that this is the total ovarian reserve, which is not the case. This is kind of like the people that are getting ready to go up to bat. This is a hormone produced by the follicles as they're getting ready to have eggs coming out. So it kind of tells you what your fertility over the next 2 to 3 months is going to be like. And as this gets lower, it's more problematic. If you can keep it higher, that's really good. And there are things that you can do that we can talk about, later to do that as well. But this, you want to ideally have it over 1 is optimal for AMH.
So what's one big thing that women can start doing today, or maybe it even has to do with their partner? Before we get into some of the questions from the audience, if there's just one big takeaway from your own personal experience in your field that you think is really valuable for women to come away with today, what would that be?
I think one of the most important things is to make sure that you have care providers and a team that is on Team You. I cannot tell you how many people call me crying, being like, my doctor said, even IVF isn't going to work, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, are you getting a cycle? Yeah, okay, all right, well, let's figure it out. So I think a lot of traditional doctors have this misconception that just because of someone's age, they are out of the race. And unfortunately, we have a bit of a white coat syndrome in this country where it's like, yes, they have had 10 years of training, but they don't know everything. They don't know your capability. One of my clients who had an AMH of 0.08 was told you will need donor eggs, just hatched her child Christmas Day. So it's not just about the numbers. You need to find whether that's an integrative place like Parsley Health, if it's a coach like me, if it's acupuncture, whatever it is, you have to assemble a team that is on Team You. You are driving the bus, and you can let a doctor on the bus, a supplement on the bus, a coach on the bus. It's your bus, and you have to drive it. You can't try to flag down the IVF bus and be like, please give me my baby. You have to know that you can do this. So assemble a team that also thinks you can.
Yeah, I think it's so important for women to understand that they should use every tool in their toolbox to really, assemble that team, to have everything come together. And that's every healthcare provider that's caring for them. It's the friends, it's the family, it's how you're caring for yourself. So it really is everything. From a holistic perspective, that's exactly how we practice at Parsley. And that's probably why we see so many women come into the office and have pregnancy as that #1 health goal.
It's also important too that because we give up so much of our capability on this journey, we think that because it's not working, I must need an outside thing. And so we put all of our weight on that. But you just have to think of it as I can use these things as aids, but I am going to be the one that gets me pregnant. You have to have that sense of capability. If you're not an energetic match to being able to make a human,
Yeah. Nutrition?
Yeah, definitely finding the diet that is most supportive to you. I am wildly passionate about helping people figure out what diet works for them. Because, you can pick up any book off of the shelf that is saying in 21 days it's going to fix everything under the sun. But ultimately, we have this beautiful thing called bioindividuality. And what works for somebody else is not going to work for you and vice versa. In my most perfect ideal world, I start working with men and women about 6 months prior to when they ideally want to conceive, because there's so many unknowns. Does your body tolerate fermented fiber really well, or how are you with dealing with fats? Is your liver and gallbladder working well? How are your detox pathways? We have a lot of unknowns, and we want to figure out what's working for you and what's working for your lifestyle, so that as you get to the point where you're starting to try, as you become pregnant, it's natural, it's you, it's your lifestyle. Because the last thing we want to do is find out you're pregnant and then want to do a total 180 on your diet, on your lifestyle. Right? That's the time for all these time-tested things to be just easy, because it's not going to get easier for 9 months. So we want diet and lifestyle to be figured out, and like you said, to be team you. You know, this needs to be individualized for you and your reality and your needs.
And I think really it's about a holistic perspective, because if you've got, this is not the perfect metaphor, but if you have a sinking boat with a bunch of holes in it, and you plug one of them, well, then you've still got a sinking boat. So as much as people just want to grab onto like the one thing, and that is helpful in certain regards, I think you want to try to look at it from different angles, from your hormones, from the mental side of it, from, make sure you're getting enough sleep. And supplementation as well. If you don't mind, there's 3 really impactful supplements I'd like to mention. These would be CoQ10 is one of them, and this is something that's very supportive of your mitochondria. This helps to escort electrons and protons into the mitochondria and helps with ATP synthesis. ATP is basically pure cellular energy. It's a cellular currency. And when you have your mature oocytes, your eggs, these are the largest cells in the female body. Hence, they're going to need a lot more batteries to power them. And the development of an egg is hugely energy intensive. So you need a lot of healthy mitochondria. And these mitochondria really come to the center of so many aspects of health, and especially fertility and egg health. And then you also have DHEA. Now this is a supplement that you can get, kind of like over the counter these days or in a health food store, but it is a hormone, and so it's something you really should do under the guidance of a doctor. And a dosage you commonly see, and again, you customize this with your practitioner, is something like 25 milligrams 3 times a day. And the reason for this is that both in men and women, DHEA is rapidly converted into testosterone and other androgens. Testosterone, you may think, is just like a hormone for men, but in reality, it's very important at lower levels, like 1/30 the levels, for women as well. And for optimal fertility, you really want your testosterone to be kind of in the upper third of the normal range. And what happens with testosterone is it comes in and it fits into the testosterone receptors on the granulosa cells that are around the follicles. And this helps with follicle development, because if your follicles are not developing properly, then it's going to lead to less eggs and less healthy eggs. And when you look at women who are dealing with lots of fertility problems, very commonly testosterone is very low. And the last one is called nicotinamide mononucleotide. This is something that is very new. Literally, the study I'm about to talk about that has connected this to fertility was just published on February 11th. So this is like news that's less than a month old. And so we have this thing in our body called NAD. It's a core component of the energy production of our body and our production of ATP, which we were talking about with CoQ10. And you can raise NAD in a variety of ways, and it's found, things like NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, are found in certain foods. This is something that's a precursor to NAD. And so you can have broccoli or avocado or beef, these all have NMN, but it doesn't survive digestion very well, which is a problem. So you can get pure NAD intravenously, very effective, very expensive at the same time. So a more effective way to do it is through these NAD precursors like nicotinamide mononucleotide and nicotinamide riboside, although nicotinamide mononucleotide is shown to be more stable and more effective. Now, as I said, they struggle through digestion, so if you can get them absorbed more directly, it's great. So there's, for example, a company named Alive by Nature that has a sublingual tablet, which is pretty good, but still it's not the greatest. Then there's also Quicksilver Scientific, who does a liposomal one that absorbs very well, which is great. You get great absorption below the tongue because there the skin is between 1/10 and 3/4 of a millimeter thick, so you absorb into the blood very easily. But Alive by Nature actually just today, funnily enough, came out with a liposomal form of NMN, which I pre-ordered. It's in the mail. I'm definitely getting it. And this is something that is shown in the studies to really increase the NAD levels in the ovaries, and as a result, they're seeing, and this is in mice studies, and has just recently been confirmed in horse studies. They haven't done the human studies yet as of this date, but they're seeing more eggs being made and more successful pregnancies. So they took mice who were 12 months old, and to put that in perspective, mice go through menopause between 9 and 12 months usually, and of the mice that were not on nicotinamide mononucleotide, you see about 1 in 15 was able to get pregnant. Of the ones that were taking it for 4 weeks, at a dose that equates to about, for a human, about 350 milligrams for a 110-pound female, about 2/3 of the mice became pregnant. So this is amazing. And look, like I said, it hasn't been tested in humans yet, but let's say it doesn't work for fertility in the same way as humans. You've just taken a supplement that's one of the greatest things for extending your lifespan and health span.
Yeah.
So even if it doesn't plan out and the dots don't connect for that next generation, although it's very promising that it very likely could, you're at least doing wonders for your own body.
Looking forward to seeing more studies on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got some questions, right? Oh, wait here. How far in advance should you start preparing for pregnancy? That's a great question. How far in advance? So I can answer that at least from a Parsley standpoint. I feel like you can start preparing in advance as far as you want, really. But from the purposes of egg quality and the egg getting ovulated, like the one that gets fertilized, I typically recommend the same as Erica had mentioned, about 3 to 6 months prior. So at least 3 to 6 months prior. Sometimes for some women there's more to the discussion. Maybe they were on birth control for a long period of time. Maybe they haven't had a period in a long time. So, talking to your doctor about these things so that you can plan for something that's really unique to you. There's a lot of other considerations there, but at least 3 to 6 months prior is what I would say. You guys, anything different? Yeah.
Mine have already been trying for a long time. So
It depends, I think, a little bit on your detoxification needs as well. Like, let's say you have really high levels of mercury and lead, something like that, where you need to go a route of like chelation therapy.
Yeah.
You may want to look more towards like a year, 2 years, to allow time to properly get those out of the body.
Yeah.
So it takes time to do it gently, where you're not having any negative side effects.
Good point.
Yeah.
I've also noticed too that for some women, especially the ones that have been on birth control for a long time, that once they get off birth control and they're trying to even just get a period back, get one period back,
Yep.
that could take a long time.
Mhm.
And it could take a long time for us to work on their body and work on the detox and work on different pathways and nutrition to try to improve that. So it really is an individualized, individual question. What would you recommend for someone who has had ectopic pregnancies and is trying for the 3rd time? Great question.
I'm going to defer to the MD on that one.
Anyone want to answer before I take a stab? No? Yeah, so ectopic pregnancies, that's a great question. I think that from an individual standpoint, anatomically, there can be problems. There can be problems with exactly where the actual egg that's fertilized is implanting, right? So the reason why that could also be because the egg may not have the best quality genetics. So the egg, if it doesn't have the best genetics, or even when it combines with the sperm, if there's any problem with the actual fetus, then of course the body has this tendency to abort, right? So if it doesn't have the right genetics, if it doesn't have the right nutrients, if it's not developing along, sometimes this can even be issues where we need to investigate mom. We need to understand anatomically what's happening with mom. We also have to understand, why does she have multiple ectopic pregnancies? So is there any sort of genetic mutations that might be involved there? Is there something in her underlying blood work that needs to be investigated? So cases like that are really on an individual basis.
Can I just say something just from an energetic perspective?
Sure.
Too, that I find that specifically with ectopic pregnancies, but also even with miscarriage, when it tends to be, even though like obviously you're trying and you think it's the right time, sometimes there are things outside that happen that kind of we put the brakes on, and literally the egg will do that also. So like, for example, one of my clients, her mom died and her husband was out of work and they moved, and her body was just like, nope, never mind, and so we have to take that into account too. Your brain is sending orders to the body. So we have to look at like what the brain is worried about also, because that can put the brakes on the body as well.
Yeah, and create the ectopic pregnancy.
That's the physiological manifestation of it.
What would the ideal fertility diet look like? That's a good one.
Okay, guys. Well, like I said, it is very individual. Base minimum is we want to make sure you're getting enough calories. Calories to promote.
#calories.
Great. Finally gonna go viral. We want to create abundance, and it's abundance in calories, it's abundance in macronutrients, it's abundance in micronutrients. And the best way to approach that is really with variety, because there's an incredibly complex and beautiful interplay that the nutrients within real whole foods have that science still can't quite figure out. You know, all the different nutrients in an apple will never be encapsulated into a supplement because the fiber slowing down the absorption and the area and the sunshine and all these different factors are just so unique to that one whole food. So at a minimum, we want to get a variety of foods to promote the best quality diet and the best health and the best chance for a really good pregnancy. I do promote more of a plant-forward diet, and this can fall in line with many different philosophies. At Parsley, one of the diets that we use very therapeutically is a plant-forward paleo type diet. It's our core diet, where we're removing a lot of the most inflammatory foods, things like your glutens, your dairies, your sugars, things that cause havoc within the body. You don't want your body and your immune system to be fighting an inflammatory battle at the same time that you're trying to create new life. So we want to remove things that are not working for you, replace them with things that are really supportive.
Omegas.
Getting in your fats, your omegas that are so critical for fetal brain development and for inflammatory support. Getting in great protein, a variety of proteins. Making sure that you're getting plenty of fiber, a little bit of starch based on how much activity you're doing. Not so little that we stress the thyroid, not so much that we promote weight gain. So there is a fine balance. At minimum, I'd say whole foods first, and then talk to your care team about supplementing and really bringing it into more of a minutia from there.
Yeah. One last question. When should you stop poor health habits like smoking and drinking and fast food, etc.?
Today's pretty good.
Yesterday, right now. Yesterday.
Right now. Right now, absolutely. As soon as possible. One more question? Okay, good. What would you do to normalize hormones like thyroid for someone who has Hashimoto's? That's a I feel like that's a answer question.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very multi-level.
Yeah.
So much of it ties back to gut health. When you're
It
dealing
does.
with autoimmunity, with Hashimoto's, there's like multiple components to it, right? There's like genetic susceptibility is a part of it, previous lifestyle factors. But if you can at least go about the most, it's not easy, but easy to address in a lot of ways. One that is most obviously in front of you, and you have tools that you can actually deal with it, is improving gut health, decreasing heightened gut permeability, dealing with what some people call leaky gut, and the inflammation and autoimmune reactions that come as a result of that. I think that can, at least is one of the legs of the stool that you can stabilize.
And let's not forget about stress.
I was just
Right?
going to say, calming that
Yeah.
cortisol response for somebody with Hashimoto's is so
Yes.
imperative. Yep.
Exactly, because that can make everything worse, especially if the stress is not controlled. Cortisol on the drive there really affects the thyroid gland directly.
Yeah.
So keeping stress under control is a big one for patients that have Hashimoto's that are trying to conceive. And we got, for me, let's see. Okay, yeah. So basically it's make sure that you talk to your doctor about any of the supplements, any of the food nutrition, anything else that we've discussed today. It's really important that you talk to your doctor about these types of things that you've heard and whether or not they're right for you. Any last minute things that you guys want to add that you want to make sure our audience hears about when it comes to natural conception, fertility, last minute thoughts?
As the one guy up on the panel, maybe I could share a little bit about what helps guys on that side, because it takes two, right?
Yes.
So with guys, of course, you want to avoid things that are going to harm your sperm, right? So this comes in the form of EMF. It's a big one. Don't be keeping your cell phone in your pocket. Don't have your laptop on your lap. Women, if your male partner insists on doing those things, check out a company called LAMS, L-A-M-B-S. They make an underwear that's lined with silver fabric that blocks EMF, so at least you're helping to block some of this harmful radiation. What you also want to avoid is excess heat, so too much use of a hot sauna, hot baths, jacuzzi, any of that is also going to be harmful to sperm. On the other hand, cold very good for sperm. So doing cold showers, doing ice baths, this is all very supportive of sperm health, as is red light. So you can get something like the Juve Go. It's a small red, high intensity red LED thing. Put it in your pants for 10 to 20 minutes a day. It does wonders for testosterone and sperm production. And then looking in the herbal department, you could look at things like ashwagandha, we talked about earlier, for women, also great for men. It doesn't directly affect the sperm, but it's actually found in studies to end up really increasing sperm count and quality as an indirect result of how it affects your stress. And then tribulus is another one for guys. Gelatinized maca, Hoshu Wu, Tomcat Ali is another really fantastic one. And so there's a bunch of tools you can bring in here for guys. But yeah, it's important for the guy to do his part of the job as well and provide the best ingredients. And everything we said about mitochondria for women also applies for men, because the sperm got to swim. They got to cover some ground. They got to get moving fast.
I would also add for men, explosive weightlifting movement is one of the best ways to promote testosterone production in the body, along with promoting lean muscle mass, which is also incredibly important. So getting into like a CrossFit type gym or something like that, where you're doing just those explosive Olympic lifts, it's a really fun and good way to promote that.
And just from an energetic perspective, while we're on the male train, I do find that a lot of my clients' partners who have a low count, low motility, that kind of thing, it tends to be related to a couple of things. Either the woman is the breadwinner and they either don't have a job or they're not happy in their job, or they have some sort of emotional trauma as well that they have not dealt with, or they're not doing something that fulfills them. Because the sacral chakra, if you're into energy kind of stuff, is creativity, relationships, and children. That's where the reproductive organs are in both men and women. And so creativity doesn't necessarily mean photography, dancing, painting. It can be purpose for guys. And so if they're in a slog of a job and they hate it, or they're unemployed or whatever, if you can sort of plant seeds maybe for them and encourage, even if it's a hobby, they don't have to change jobs or whatever, but something that is fulfilling and purposeful to them. I've found that one of my clients was just recently a few weeks pregnant. They told her she couldn't because he had a male factor issue. She's all of a sudden pregnant because all of a sudden he started volunteering at an animal shelter, and he loves animals, and done. So yes, there's, again, it's a holistic approach. You're gonna wanna look at everything, but don't overlook this stuff, because it really is, again, brain's giving orders to the body. So make sure this is on the straight.
And it's great to have a semen analysis done. Find out what your sperm count is, morphology, motility. Get some numbers around where things are at, so you can track it over time and see if what you're doing is making an impact.
Yeah. Well, I hope you all picked up some great gems today. Where can everybody find you all on Instagram or social media handles?
Yeah, I'm Instagram at Addictive Wellness. Same on YouTube and all other social media.
I'm at Erica Zellner Nutrition with 2 L's. And I'm pretty much only on Instagram. I have not dived into some of the other ones yet.
I am at Fusion Fertility on Instagram again mostly, and then fusionfertility.com. And my book is, I think it's on the table over there.
Yeah.
How to Get Pregnant Even When You've, thank you, even when you've tried everything, a mind-body guide to fertility. It goes into 4 areas that most doctors are not talking about that you might want to think about as you're on this journey.
Yeah. And I'm Dr. Jaclyn Tolentino at Parsley Health, or at Dr. Jaclyn Tolentino. So it was great. I'm glad that you guys got some gems from this evening. Looking forward to holding another type of panel so that we can also continue to share more knowledge. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.